Julian didn't care about the smell of fresh flour. He only cared about the yield on the square footage. For a decade, Clara had woken up at 4 a.m. to tend to the ovens at Grandma's hearth, a beloved neighborhood bakery. She had stood by her grandmother's side, learning the exact delicate rhythm of wild yeast fermentation. But when Grandma passed away, Julian, their wealthy corporate lawyer older brother, appeared at the wake with a sleek leather briefcase and an icy smile. Using a vague, predatory loophole in the old estate trust, Julian seized the bakery building. He planned to evict Clara, gut the historic brick interior, and open a sterile, overpriced bistro geared toward high-end tourists. "I'm going to need the leather recipe journal and the master sourdough starter culture by Friday, Clara," Julian said, checking his gold watch as movers hauled away Grandma's vintage mixing bowls. "Technically, all intellectual property belongs to the estate, and since I own the estate, it's my property now." Clara looked at her brother's spotless, manicured hands. She felt a wave of profound heartbreak, but she didn't argue. She knew Julian's legal team would drain her savings if she fought them. "Fine, Julian," Clara said quietly, handing over the antique jar of bubbling yeast and the handwritten journal. "It's all yours. I hope you get exactly what you want out of it." What Clara didn't tell him was that a recipe is more than words on a page. It is a living science. Julian's high-priced chefs didn't understand that Grandma's recipe journal, written in the 1940s, used an archaic Troy weight system, 1 ounce equals 31.1 grams, inherited from her goldsmith father, rather than standard kitchen ounces, 28.3 grams. More importantly, Julian had immediately replaced the bakery's old, unchlorinated well water line with a modern, chemically treated municipal tap system to save on insurance. The grand opening of Julian's artisanal bistro was a highly publicized disaster. On opening morning, the harsh chlorine in the new tap water completely eradicated the delicate, wild microflora in the historic starter culture, turning the yeast completely dead and sour. Compounding the failure, the kitchen staff used modern digital scales set to standard ounces, throwing the sugar-to-flour ratios completely out of balance. Thousands of dollars worth of bread emerged from the commercial ovens as dense, blackened, unchewable bricks. The highly anticipated heritage loaves tasted like burnt cardboard. Within 48 hours, the local food critics had eviscerated the bistro online, and the high-end investors pulled their funding. Julian was left with a mountain of debt, a ruined reputation, and a completely useless, dead jar of flour paste. Clara didn't spend a single moment gloating. She was too busy baking. Before handing over the bakery keys, Clara had safely tucked a tiny 2-ounce sample of the true sourdough starter into a thermos and brought it home. Using her modest savings, she purchased a beautiful, mobile wooden baking cart and parked it directly across the street from Julian's failing bistro, right beneath the shade of the park trees. She reached out to their younger cousin, Leo, a brilliant but struggling college student whom Julian had heartlessly cut off financially the year before. She offered him half the cart's profits to manage the morning sales. By 7 a.m. on Monday, the irresistible, rich aroma of genuine, perfectly risen, golden-crusted heritage bread drifted across the pavement, drawing a massive line of loyal neighborhood customers straight to Clara's cart. As Clara watched Leo happily hand a warm, steaming loaf to an old neighbor, she looked across the street at the dark, locked doors of Julian's empty bistro. The building belonged to her brother, but the legacy and the family's true heart was right here, rising perfectly in the morning sun.